Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, where if you use the promo code BOXES, you'll get a free entry into your first draft. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Michael, how are you in this fine day?
I am doing pretty good. It's always a good day when you are talking fantasy basketball. It's almost
Well,
back. A lot of people are focused on fantasy football right now. No thanks. Not interested. Don't give a crap about people's third wide receivers who suddenly win you a week, even though you drafted properly and that you know who you picked up, and it's all pure luck. Not interested.
craziness is we are like a month away from training camp already. Like it seems like the off season flew by for me.
It was a long offseason. I mean, basketball is truly a 360, almost a 365 sport. I guess there's this brief downtime in August for everybody to catch their breath just a little bit.
But yeah, I mean, towards the middle of September, right? The Mavericks I know have their media day on September 21st. So
yeah, and if you count fantasy basketball, which I do because I'm hosting this podcast right now, then it is 365 because you got to start preparing for next year right now.
well, and we can talk about this sometimes, but I always feel like right now and even like maybe for the last month, you can make some real underrated trades in dynasty leagues where people are kind of napping, right? They don't know Kyle Anderson moved to the Grizzlies and is going to play big minutes, and you can kind of get a steal for next to nothing.
Yeah, that is 100% true. We just talked about the Memphis Grizzlies actually in one of our last episodes, so I would go check that one out. I think that was a pretty solid episode. The Memphis Grizzlies have some interesting moves, but today we are talking about the returning champions, the Golden State Warriors, here in our 30 teams in more than 30 days preseason fantasy basketball preview for listeners of the Watching the Boxes podcast.com.
I think you forgot to mention the sandwich in there.
Yeah. Plus sandwiches for everyone. That is what the official name of what we are doing. And the reason I am drawing this out so long is because the Warriors are just the Warriors again. And obviously, the biggest move of the offseason was Boogie Cousins packing up shop, taking the incredibly little amount of money and signing with the Golden State Warriors, which the whole league is up in arms about. But like, that's easily the most interesting thing going on here. Other than that, the Warriors are just the Warriors again.
Yeah, I mean, early on, right? Someone's gonna have to fill that starting center role. Pachulia's gone, McGee's gone.
So
But
yeah, let's just knock out what we already know. There's that center spot there. Do you think there's any fantasy standard value with? I guess they're going to probably play Jordan Bell. It would be my guess. A lot more, and Draymond, maybe Jordan Bell and Draymond at the same time, or Iguodala and Draymond at the 5 for the beginning of the season. Like, is there any standard league relevancy to Jordan Bell for the first couple months of the season?
well, and they have Kevon Looney there too, who in limited time, very much like Jordan Bell, has shown that he can get some steals and some blocks. So both those guys are going to be interesting to kind of stream through. I don't know that you're going to want to hold those guys a ton because I think they're going to kind of do what they did last year and maybe oscillate minutes, right? Like maybe one night Looney gets the 28 and Jordan Bell gets 20, and then they flip it around the next night, and then just depending on the matchup and who they're playing and what the other team's running out. I mean, they don't really need to stretch any of these guys. They don't really need to stretch anyone, right? They know they're going to make the playoffs, and all they really care about is winning the ring. So
Yeah, they're just gunning for their next ring, which they'll probably. I mean, you never know. The playoffs get weird. Houston was like 5 made threes away from actually winning that series, and they missed like 30,000 in a row. So there was that factor. A lot of people are gonna forget in the pages of history. People are gonna probably end up forgetting about that game 7 and that game 6, and so.
Well, and I mean, Chris Paul doesn't go down, right? Like they had a
Yeah,
3-1 lead with Paul in there.
it was an incredible series. It was the actual NBA Finals, not because the real NBA Finals was incredibly boring. But would you end up taking Jordan Bell? I think even in limited minutes, some streamer value in there. And if he's going to be playing 27, 28 minutes a night, I'm definitely interested in Jordan Bell, maybe as a late round flyer or in deeper leagues, kind of grabbing him at in some of those late rounds. But like you were saying, his ceiling is eventually by the end of the year, he's not going to be playing as much. He's just going to be sharing bench minutes.
So here's kind of how I'm looking at Jordan Bell. In Mark's rankings, in 20 minutes a game, he ranks 119th.
That's not bad.
So you got to think, right? 20 minutes a game for him is probably pretty safe. But at the same time, like I don't see a ton of upward mobility for him. Like, okay, I don't think they're ever going to really give him like 30 minutes, right? They've got Looney, they've got other guys they can play, and they've shown a propensity to want to do that. So, as a last pick, right, which is what we're saying that he probably is, right, one of your last 2 or 3 picks, there's just going to be guys like De'Aaron Fox or Dennis Smith Jr. or, name another guy, Karis LeVert, right? Like, I'd rather have all these guys because they're going to play so many more minutes than someone like Jordan Bell.
Yeah. Guys with higher minute upsides, guys with higher ceilings for the overall year, Jordan Bell will not be valuable after the first couple months of the season or so, whenever they decide to slowly bring Boogie back. And we will talk about Boogie. Believe me, that will be the majority of this podcast. But let's just run down the rest of these Golden State Warriors. You did mention hey, they're only worried about rings. Do you think that means Steph Curry and Kevin Durant are not number 1 overall picks? Because both could be if they play a majority, or if they play like 75 plus games this year, both of them could actually be the best fantasy player in the league next year.
So,
but do you think they will even bother playing extended minutes or extending those games at all?
I don't think they have to, but I'm not. I mean, if you're telling me I have a top 4 pick, I'm not afraid to take either one. For me, okay, well, I'll ask you first. Who would you rather have, Curry or Durant?
In a head-to-head league or a roto league?
Well, let's say both, right? I'm sure we got listeners to play in each.
That's true. I think I'd take Curry in a head-to-head league because coming from the position of point guard, you're getting a ton there. And Kevin Durant's kind of more of a across the board type player, so I think I would take Kevin Durant maybe over Steph Curry in a roto league, but to me it's a toss up.
Yeah, right, and you can't go wrong. I'll say this: I'll just speak for head-to-head leagues right now because I feel like I've done a little more research for those, and not that the roto league research isn't coming, but I don't know that I'm, especially in this range, right? We talk about how fungible all these guys are in kind of that top 8, 9, 10 range.
Yeah.
In a head-to-head league, I'm taking Steph Curry second or third overall, right? Depending on if I want Anthony Davis. I think Harden's kind of locked in as my number 1 right now, and I'm going to kind of, if I had a second pick, I'd be oscillating probably between Curry and Davis, depending on what kind of strategy I was trying to employ.
Yeah, I think they give it a little bit more value in roto leagues versus head-to-head leagues. But if you're taking any of those guys number 1 overall, I'm fine with that. I mean, you could be like, oh, James Harden's going to play like 82 games or whatever, or currently Towns is going to play 37 minutes and 80 games, and those are better picks. All right, cool, go ahead and do that. I still think Anthony Davis is probably my number one pick overall because I love it, AD. But we'll talk about those players in a future podcast. Really, Curry and Durant, they're top picks. Period.
Well, and here's another thing I'll say for the casual fan, right? Like, if you want to watch the games and you don't want to buy a league pass for $200 or whatever the price comes out to be, maybe you want to pick Harden or Curry, right? Because those guys probably have the most national TV games, and fantasy should be fun, man. So, I mean, those guys are all so close, and they're all going to score a ton of points and do all kinds of great stuff. So,
yeah, a lot of people ask, who should I pick in the first round? Whatever. You win your win your draft in the later rounds. I mean, I always say this: you can lose your draft in the first 2 rounds, but you cannot win your draft in the first 2 rounds.
Well, except for 1 year, right? That year Steph Curry
was
when
the greatest
I don't
player
know
of all time.
Right, went AWOL, and that was the year right before Durant came, right? That year maybe you did, but other than that, you're right.
Could Steph Curry revert to 90% of that this year? Yeah, sure, it could happen. I doubt with he'll play that much or need to take that much of the load, but it could happen. So go with your heart in those first 2 rounds with those first 2 guys who are heads and tails beyond better than everybody else. Let's talk about both Draymond Green and Klay Thompson, the other 2 guys on this team, real quick. I think we kind of know who these players are. A lot of people thought Klay Thompson would take a hit last year, and he didn't really take as big of a hit as a lot of people, I think, prescribed him to. I think Klay Thompson was still doing Klay Thompson stuff out there.
I love Klay Thompson. I'm an often owner of Klay Thompson.
Just as a human being, or as a friend, as a lover.
I think he's just a really underrated NBA player in a lot of senses. I think he's literally one of the top probably 10 or 15 players in the league, and because he's on this team surrounded by so many other amazing players that he doesn't always get the due.
Yeah, he's fantastic defensively. But I think a lot of people who casually watch basketball don't really probably give him too much credit for. If you're in a dynasty league, I would actually probably try to either try to trade for Klay Thompson or look to acquire Klay Thompson in some way. His contract is coming up. There is a decent chance that Klay Thompson does go to another team, and he will be the best player on that team, most likely, or at least the second best player on the team instead of the third, if not now behind Boogie, the fourth player available to take shots. I don't think Boogie hurts him here very much. We're going to talk about Boogie and why I think that here in a little bit, but Klay Thompson, you're what? 3rd round, 4th round, 3rd round, probably for me.
Yeah, and I mean, you just feel good about getting what Klay Thompson's going to give you, right? Some massive 3-pointers, 20 points, a little bit of rebounds, a little bit of assists, really good percentages, right?
You do wish he could get some of those kind of intangible numbers up a little bit, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to get the same thing as you got from Klay last year.
Yeah, right. I think we've seen it. And here's the one question I want to ask about Draymond Green. Can you draft Draymond and not punt?
You can, but you probably aren't, if that makes any sense.
You're right. You can delude yourself, I think, into thinking I'm not punting points, but where Draymond's going to go, which is in that 2nd round.
Yeah.
I just don't think
I think it feels a little high to me in the 2nd round. Usually, so I usually don't have Draymond on my team because of that big hole that he has in points. You kind of need to draft, James Harden or, I guess Anthony Davis, any of those top guys who are scoring 26, 27, 28 points a game. You would pair him with Draymond, and then you would have to get another 20-some point scorer. Even then, you're still behind.
I think to not punt it, I literally think this has to pretty much be your team, right? So give yourself James Harden, Anthony Davis, whoever's going to be one of the absolute top scorers in the NBA. Okay, you come back. If you pick Draymond in the second round, okay, you have to hope that either Devin Booker or Bradley Beal can be your third round pick. And then in the fourth round, you have to go for somebody like DeMar DeRozan, someone else who's going to score you 20 points. Like I think
who might not really fit what you want. Like the only real way is if you think you can get Draymond in the third round.
I just think
that's the way I would do it anyway, because I don't think I'd waste a second round pick on it.
So here's the reality. I'm a guy who doesn't own Draymond a lot for that reason. But punting points is an underrated strategy, I think. I think that everybody finds points real sexy. And so if you're in a head-to-head league, punting points, now it's a little bit difficult to do because guys like James Harden still have a lot of value even if you punt points.
Yeah, but when we talk about punting, and we'll be talking about this actually might be some exclusive content. We'll be talking about draft strategies, punting strategies, exclusive to our Patreon subscribers. So if you are interested in some of this exclusive content, check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes and feel free to subscribe to get some of this exclusive content going into next season. But when we punt, and we talk about this all the time, we're not punting, we're ignoring. So I'll take a guy who's good at points, even if I'm punting points, because I'm ignoring the quality of that guy. I'm not getting my value on that guy because of his points. I'm getting my value on that guy because of the rest of the stuff he does.
Well, and here's another thing I'll say too, right? Like even if you're punting, it's okay to win that league a couple times in a head-to-head league. Like you don't necessarily have to be the absolute worst person. You don't have to pick the absolute worst scorer just for the sake of it, right? Like
yeah, you don't have to get Rondo just because you're punting free throw. You might not need Rondo on your team. And I think that's another one. A lot of people just punt free throw outright. And if everybody's punting free throw outright, you are not getting your competitive advantage on that. So you might as well be competitive in that and easily win your, at least 4 of those matchups, and then actually compete for that category. But yeah, I'm with you. I think you have to punt points, which is, I don't know. I don't know how into punting points I am. I think you're into it a little bit more than I am.
Well, here's the reality. That's why I'm into it. No one's into it.
That's true.
No one wants to do it. And that's maybe why I kind of like it.
Yeah, if you're like late, but that's the thing. If you're late round, man, it's like who aligns? I guess you would have to go Cat. Or if you're late round, you'd have to go like Chris Paul and Jokic back to back or something like that. And then hope you can get. I don't think Draymond's going to drop to the bottom of the third round.
No, I think it works good when you've got like a 6, 7, 8 pick, because you're still going to get someone awesome, right?
Yeah.
And then you can come back with a Draymond or an Andre Drummond in that next round.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you're hoping maybe that one of those two drops to your third round pick. But if not, I mean, there's lots of guys. Marcus Gasol only scores like 16 points a game, right? And does a lot of goodness otherwise that you can get.
We love Marcus Gasol.
Right, and so basically what it comes down to is you're going for guys like Kyle Anderson then later on in the draft, right? Like Kyle Anderson's not going to score a lot of points, but Kyle Anderson's going to do a lot of goodness in other spots. And so it opens up a whole new Larry Nance, right? He's another guy, right? To like 11 points a game, but 8 rebounds, an assist and a half, a steal and a half, a block, right? Like you're going for those types of guys that DeJounte Murray. You know what I mean? Like it opens up a lot of players.
Maybe you should get Jordan Bell later in the draft if you're punting points.
Yeah, right. Because Jordan Bell's going to get you steals and blocks and rebounds, and that's the kind of stuff you need when you're punting points. And people like Jabari Parker, right, or Andrew Wiggins, like those guys are pretty much off your board because they don't really do much other than score.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think you're right. There's just I think you have to weigh your punting strategy. You have to hit that right too. I think it's very difficult to punt points when points are even on the waiver wire, like even just like a league average or a slightly below league average point guy is
See, that's not
is
bad
probably
for
sitting
you.
on your waiver wire.
It's not bad for you because then maybe that lets you beat, if
The
you're
mediocre guys.
yeah, it lets you beat some of those mediocre guys because you're like, I'm just gonna pick this guy up, get 14 points.
That's true. That's a good point. I'm interested in seeing your point strategy in one of our listener leagues, Tyler. And you better get on that listener dynasty league rules, Tyler. People are clamoring for it.
Other than you, is there really anyone clamoring for it?
There's multiple Patreon subscribers who will be in the dynasty league. Those positions are going fast. Are asking for the league rules. So you better get on
I've
that.
got 92% typed up.
Wow, typed up. Yeah, I'm impressed.
Yes.
All right, let's go to the elephant in the room. He's as large as an elephant.
Well,
Let's
say this. One quick thing first, right? No one else you really want in a standard league on this team, right? We've talked about them all, except for the one guy you're going to talk about and the 4 guys we talked about.
Yep, that's why we got them all out of the way, because the only truly interesting thing to talk about here is the thing that everybody's talking about in NBA Twitter verse, and that is Boogie Cousins on the Golden State Warriors. And while in regular NBA circles, it's disheartening and exciting and stupid, and they should blow up the NBA, and everybody should say the Golden State Warriors are the best ran franchise in the history of the world because they played within the rules, blah, blah, blah. There's all a bunch of crap. But in fantasy, we have a completely other set of qualifiers to talk about. And the most important one of those is, what is the over-under for Boogie Cousins games played next season?
30.
I think it's a little low. I'm going to go over.
Mark Roberts pegged it at 30. That wasn't me. That was Mark Roberts. The ghost of Mark Roberts pegged it at 30.
I don't trust that Mark Roberts. I don't trust him only as far as I can throw him.
He's a very tall man, so you can probably only throw him like 3 inches.
Yeah, I'm quite short, so he maybe I do trust him that much. 30 games seems a little low to me. There's a very long-winded historical trend of the boogie industry that I forget who did it. It's on Twitter somewhere. He's actually quite well followed, and I don't think he writes for ESPN. Do you remember who did the injury history on this?
Was it Mark J. Spears?
It might have been. I'll look it up for y'all. I probably won't actually. Go just Google it. Anyway, basically, the average return time for DeMarcus Cousins, based on previous injuries by a bunch of dudes who's had this happen, including heavily weighting big men, is early to mid-January.
Well, okay, so how many games are left in early to mid-January for the Warriors, if you don't mind me asking?
I want to say at least 40-some.
And you don't think that they sit him back-to-backs and just give him an occasional rest because they wanna and no need to rush him, so they maybe start him out for like 15 minutes a game? And
I think they'll play him. I mean, if he comes back, and let me do the math. If he comes back in mid-January, there's still quite a few games to be played. I think even so, how many minutes is he going to be played? So no back-to-backs. There's less back-to-backs this season, so for everybody, for the most part. And they're probably going to ease him back into it. So that's why I was talking about earlier, not worried about Klay Thompson, not worried about everybody else's, I guess, production this year. You could say, I think one of the rumors is, okay, if it's Boogie's night, they'll just sit Kevin Durant. All right, well, they kind of just sat Kevin Durant a few games last year, and they kind of sat Steph Curry a few games last year too, and those guys still end up being top 5 players. So I'm not too worried about their production. What I am worried about is where I'm drafting Boogie and his playing time.
Oh, I'm not drafting Boogie.
You're not drafting Boogie, not for anything.
No, for 45 games even. Like of 25 minutes on average. I mean, people are gonna want Boogie in the top 70, right? Like, it's not like you're gonna get this huge discount on Boogie because everyone remembers the greatness of Boogie in the first round and the second round, right? Like, I don't see me, especially in a standard league, owning Boogie at all. Mark Roberts pegs him as the 234th ranked player for the season. That's not even a guy I'm thinking about in a standard league.
On totals.
Yes.
So I'm just going to throw it out there. January 16th. That's mid-January. ESPN. The Golden State Warriors are at home against the New Orleans Pelicans.
That's his return. That's his return game against his
I'm calling it right here. So I want to say, I don't remember what episode this was, but just recently, Shams signed with the Athletic, and I believe that was mentioned here on the Watching the Boxes podcast. So you heard it here first. You're hearing this here first. Boogie returns January 16th against New Orleans Pelicans. So that's 39 games if he plays every single game.
Yeah, and he's not gonna.
No. But is he worth, in playoff leagues, is he worth stashing with a late round pick just to get the per game value for the playoffs?
Okay, if there's an extended bench, maybe.
If there's an IR spot.
Okay, if there's one IR spot, I'm still going to say no if there's only 3 bench spots. Because somebody on your team that you're going to want to keep is going to get hurt at some point. Right? Like, you're going to draft Steph Curry, he's going to twist his ankle and be on the IR for a couple weeks. And then you're just out of spot, right? Especially in a head-to-head league. Like, that's freaking dangerous. I'm more apt to take him in a roto league where I don't need to stream in the spots as much. You know what I mean? In a head-to-head league, unless I have multiple IR spots, like if I have unlimited IR, okay, maybe I think about Boogie with one of my last picks.
What leagues have unlimited IR, Tyler? That better not be the Dynasty League.
You can do that.
I know you can. I just don't know why you would.
Well, I mean, here's the reality, and this is kind of a thought I've been thinking about a lot. And I wouldn't say a lot, but why are we limiting people from drafting well? Like, if you're going to have an IR spot, you might as well have unlimited, right? Because it's not really your fault that your players got hurt, right? And so if you have 3 or 4 guys hurt, why are we penalizing that manager for, you know what I mean, something he can't control, right? Like maybe he drafted a really good team and they all just happen to get hurt. Why are we making him drop those really good players that he picked?
Well, he's already in the hole because those guys are hurt.
Yeah, exactly. So why are we double penalizing him by now making him cut some of those players because he you have no say over that. So
that's a pretty convincing argument, Tyler. I'm surprised by that. I think the devil's advocate response to that is there is a lot of schmucks out there who will just pick up every single injured player and then shove them on their IRs.
Okay, so. But in this situation, I'm not dropping anybody who was drafted. So, okay, you might get like the big run at the beginning of the season where you got a bunch of guys in your IR. But guys like Boogie aren't going to be out there because someone's going to pick Boogie in the last round to stash him on their IR.
Yep.
So you know what I mean? Like, who are you really getting if you're like – I don't really see anybody abusing it because I'm not having to cut – I don't know, name a top 50 player because I have 2 or 3 guys hurt, right? I have unlimited IR, so I'm keeping that player. So I think that it's much harder to abuse because there's no one getting cut.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Like, it makes some sense.
Right? Because like guys who are stashing people in their IRs, they're stashing guys who get cut for the most part.
Well, maybe we will have unlimited IR in either the Listener League or the Dynasty League. So
I kind of like that. Or like saying, I'm going to give you 5 IR spots, 6 IR spots. Like, you know what I mean? Like, have enough where you can stash your team if a lot of your guys get hurt. Like that should not you should not get penalized for that. In my opinion, that's just my opinion.
Oh, wow. I mean, I have not heard a lot of fantasy basketball people talk about unlimited IR, and you make a pretty good point, Tyler. Maybe you've converted me. Maybe you converted some of the listeners too. I didn't know this was going to be a philosophical episode of Watching the Boxes.
Hey, you were saying we might not have enough content for this. Well, there you go. I filled it with some good chat.
Yeah, you did. Absolutely. Because I think we're kind of done talking about Boogie Cousins, because I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. You're not drafting him because he isn't going to be valuable enough with the limited minutes and the, half a season at best being played. And I guess the only way I would maybe look at after the 10th round, stashing him in particular in Roto, where it's about quality starts, or even in head-to-head if you want to get a jump on the playoffs, because I think last season per game, he was 13th. And even in limited minutes, he's going to be a top 30, top 20, maybe even top 20 player. He's DeMarcus Cousins. He's one of our favorite players, quite frankly, at least one of my favorite players. So I would still stash him.
I got one question for you about what he's going to actually produce once he plays. Okay. Are you worried about his field goal shooting? Because we've seen a lot of guys who, especially the first year when they come back from this injury, they shoot a real nasty low percentage.
To an extent, yes, because we know, if anybody who follows Boogie as much as we do, we know Boogie likes to get wet from downtown. And, on that Warriors team, when they're blowing out teams and just screwing around, if he's coming in garbage time, he's going to try to get wet from downtown. Like, he's just going to be jacking up shots and not giving a crap. You hope that the Warriors mentality and Kerr and everything like that could maybe get Cousins to play a little bit more conservative around the basket. And I think those things kind of even out. So I think the field goal percentage does dip a little bit, but not a whole lot. He's probably going to be taking less shots anyway. He's going to be playing less minutes, and he's got a bunch of other guys who can actually shoot the ball on the team.
Yeah. And
his assists might go up.
Yeah, I mean,
36.
I could see that. I'm just worried he shoots like 40% or less, and that's scary.
I don't think it'll be that bad. I guess there's a potential.
So yeah, it's something to monitor. And this Achilles injury is just nasty, man. Not something you want to root for anyone to get.
No, not at all. I'm hoping and wishing Boogie Cousins a speedy and complete recovery, because I do love watching Boogie play basketball, even though he complains 24 hours a day, 7 days a week about calls from 6 years ago. So other than that, he's great. I think that's it for the Warriors, because, they're the Warriors. I think we kind of summarized it pretty quickly, and that's all it's going to be. If you like what you guys are hearing, please rate and review us on whatever podcast device or application you are listening to this on. It really helps the podcast. And if you want to reach one of us, you can find me at Watch the Boxes on Twitter, and Tyler is at Tyler P. Watts, Watts. If you want to tweet at us about feedback for the show, stuff you want to hear about, questions you have for your pre-draft strategy, or if you just want to say what's up, we're cool with that too. We're on Twitter hanging out. We're regular people. Yeah, hit us up. And if you really want to support the show and want to subscribe and get some exclusive content, patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. Check it out. We appreciate it, y'all. Thanks for listening. Have a good night. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, where if you use the promo code BOXES, you will get a free entry to your first draft. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me, per usual, is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Oh, just write my Dynasty League rules, Mike.
Good. You get to work, Tyler. The Dynasty League is filling up. So, all those listeners out there who are interested in getting into the Watching the Boxes Dynasty League, Tyler's got some crazy rules. We had a long discussion about unlimited IR in the last podcast, which actually was quite fascinating. You would think. I mean, you got to be a real fantasy basketball nerd to think unlimited IR discussions are interesting. But that is the first. It was a convincing argument, Tyler. So everybody go check out that Warriors podcast for that IR. But Tyler, get on those rules.
Hey, I got it. I just made a new one in the last episode, so I had to rewrite that one in now. I got to do extra work.
That's true. If we keep changing the rules, but if you're interested in joining that league or just the redraft league, or wants exclusive content, check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes and subscribe. It helps us out. It keeps the podcast running and keeps us gives us an extra beer or two during the month. That's all it pretty much does. Which is any free beer is much appreciated. It means more to me. It means more to me than anything else.
All right, let's talk about the team. Come on, let's get to it. I'm excited.
We are going to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Spending the most money this season. That means they win the championship, right?
Yeah. Well, first off, we got Patreon subscribers who has allowed us to get thunderstorm drops. So that's where your money's going. And they are spending the most money per player on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Which means they're going to win the championship. You going to put money on them? What's their odds at? What's their odds at, Tyler?
That's not a question I can answer. That's not something I follow super close. But this team this team's interesting, right? They made a couple of moves that I kind of like and that are kind of interesting for fantasy. One move really hurt the value of someone, and another move might have made someone who we've said is a good permanent producer for a long time a little bit more interesting.
That's true. Let me run through all these moves. They did kind of make quite a few moves this offseason.
Well, they are trying to limit that tax bill as much as possible, right? So they made a couple trades here to
Good luck. That was the one
lessen it a bit.
Semi-good move. I don't think the Hawks need to give up Dennis Schroeder, but they got Dennis Schroeder in the trade with the Oklahoma City Thunder did. They got Dennis Schroeder in the trade with the Hawks and sent Carmelo's Anthony to Atlanta, who was immediately just waived, and then Melo has ended up on the Houston Rockets, and we will talk about that in a future episode. But the Thunder also signed Timothy Luwalu Cabaret. How did you like that pronunciation, Tyler? Pretty good. Nerlens Noel and Abdel Nader, one of my favorite players, Abdel Nader, in a trade with the Celtics. But also drafted Hamidou Diallo. I'm pretty sure I got that one right too, Tyler. You're gonna get schooled on these pronunciations. Devin Hall and Kevin Hervey with the 57th pick. Not the greatest draft for the Oklahoma City Thunder, but those were all second round picks. And leaving the team was the all-time Oklahoma City Thunder great Nick Collison. And Darky Johnson, no, that's not his name. That's terrible. I'll have to edit that out. Dakari Johnson and Rodney Purvis, who are names I have never heard of. They obviously re-signed Paul George. And even Raymond Felton's on the team. So overall, I'd say a pretty good offseason for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But let's talk about the most interesting thing going on this team. Tyler, what is the most interesting thread for the Oklahoma City Thunder going into next season?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
That was weird. Chrome just decided it was going to update itself. I just shut down like all my tabs. Was like, Chrome is updating.
I was wondering. I was pronouncing all the names of all the players on the Thunder, and I was like, Tyler, what do you think about that one? I was like, dead silence. Like, oh shit, I think he dropped.
Yeah, well, dude, it was just weird because I closed off all my tabs. It was just like Chrome is updating. I'm like, thanks for telling me, Chrome.
Yeah. Whoops. All right. Whatever. I'll just pick up where I left off, and we'll just go into it.
Oh, are you gonna repronounce all the names?
No.
I'm sad I missed that.
I'm not, but you can hit me with a side comment, even though you didn't. You could just take a guess that I didn't pronounce half of them. I did get Timothy Lualu Cabaret correct.
All right, so you're doing pretty good for yourself. I feel like that's one of the tougher ones.
All right, I'll pick up where I left off. So, Tyler, what is the most interesting thread on the Oklahoma City Thunder going into next season?
Well, the thing I'm most interested about is probably the Dennis Schroeder move. Like, what kind of value does Schroeder have on this team? Right, he's going to play behind Russell Westbrook. You got to think that they're going to play those two together some, right? I mean, they don't have a ton of shooting guard options that are appealing.
That's true. It's not the greatest supporting cast. Though they did, you were right. They did get a little bit better. But Dennis Schroeder, was kind of a lower tier point guard anyway. And I think we all saw the Russell Westbrook effect that happened with Victor Oladipo as his running mate. And I feel like we're gonna see something pretty similar. Maybe not to the extent because like all of a sudden Oladipo became one of the best players in the league. I don't think Dennis Schroeder had that potential or will have that potential. But Dennis Schroeder will play enough, I think, to be standard league relevant. But I don't know if I'm going to be drafting him at all.
How many minutes you pegging old Schroeder for this year?
Well, backup point guards, even behind Westbrook, should get at least 22, 23, and then you add in some time at the other guard spot. I think he could hit 28 or even 29.
So in 25 minutes a game, according to Mark's projections, he is the 110th ranked player.
Okay.
I like that he went for 25 minutes in the sense that I do think his numbers are going to be diminished playing next to Westbrook, right? We know Westbrook is such a ball-dominant guard. So I think that, Mark's projections and rankings are all done on per-minute stats. And I think you're going to see his per-minute stats probably go down a little bit playing next to someone like Westbrook. So I think the 25 that Mark projected probably equates well to like 28 minutes per game. So 110, man, that's still a standard league relevant player. But it's in that range we've talked about a lot, right? I'm probably going to pick someone else over him because if I can have Dennis Smith Jr. or Dennis Schroeder, that's not a question for me.
Yeah, like what is Dennis Schroeder's ceiling? And like what was Dennis Schroeder's ceiling on Atlanta? Like wasn't that his ceiling? And he's just still so inconsistent, and he just has issues with his field goal percentage, and a steal a game isn't great, and a 3-pointer game isn't great. I know he could score, he can get to the rim, like he's a good scorer, but like fantasy wise, he's just not super exciting, and I just don't know how much of an opportunity he's going to have to get to his ceiling playing either with or behind Russell Westbrook.
I'm with you there. And I mean, if you look at just point guards alone, right, I'd rather have Dennis Smith Jr., I'd rather have De'Aaron Fox, I'd rather have, a lot of these guys who are kind of going in that later range. And so Schroeder probably not a guy on my teams either, but it'll be interesting to see how he fits into that dynamic and if he takes the full Victor Oladipo and kind of falls off a cliff, or if he's still kind of good.
Yeah. I'll probably be avoiding him, but it will be at least something to keep an eye on going into next season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's talk about the other supporting cast members here. You do have two starter positions open now that Melo is gone, or I guess one because Andre Robertson will be back, and even if Andre Robertson played 50 minutes a game, or they could count two of his games as one game and just double stats, I wouldn't draft him. He's just fantasy terrible.
That could be some sort of new league, though, you just invented.
Yeah, double. Is that going to be in the Dynasty League? A new rule for the Dynasty League?
Yeah, if you're awful, you get to count two of your games.
I like that. I like that idea.
It'll make some crazy value for some dudes.
If you play under 14 minutes a game, you get to double their stats.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more players valuable. It becomes real fucking interesting.
Dude, you could get some crazy values, man. Ante Zizic might be a worth drafting in that case.
Yeah.
He get like 8 rebounds and 2 blocks a game according to Mark's rankings, so watch out.
That's pretty damn good. But who is going to be taking the spot from Carmelo Anthony? Paul George, is he going to slip into the 4? Is Jeremy Grant going to start? Do I care if Jeremy Grant starts?
All right. So,
Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, is he like a good sleeper for deeper leagues? I think so.
Let's sort this out, right?
All right. I said a lot of names.
They have 2 viable centers in Steven Adams and Nerlens Noel, right? So let's put that in that bin. Okay. The backcourt, right? They got Westbrook, Felton can play some point guard, and Schroeder, so they got that pretty well covered. Shooting guards, man, that's a dog vomit. Small forwards or other wings, it's Luwawu-Cabarrot and Paul George, right? Like, not great. I think they got to start Jeremy Grant, right? They paid him this offseason. I don't know why inspiring that is, but that's probably their starting power forward, right? So they probably run out Westbrook. And I don't know who's going to be their starting shooting guard. Roberson, is that who they're going to go with? Like, just for a defense only type deal? And then,
I mean, maybe you don't really. Paul George scores a ton and Westbrook scores even more. So, like, what else? You don't really need anything else. Steven Adams cleaned up the boards.
Yeah, and so I think they're going to go with Grant and probably Roberson. And I think you're going to see Schroeder play quite a bit as a kind of 6 man. And, you know, there's not a lot of really exciting people on this roster.
No, there's not past the top 3 guys. Deeper leagues, like I said, I think Timothy Luwawu is kind of interesting if he's going to play more extended minutes, or not extended minutes, but, you know, even like decent bench minutes.
It'll be interesting to see him against Ferguson too, right? Like, that's kind of a big position battle to see who's going to get minutes. And if they both stink,
there's minutes to be had, right?
Right, and if they both stink, Raymond Felton could get all those minutes, right? They could just basically be in the backcourt. Westbrook, Schroeder, Felton, you know what I mean? Play some Paul George at the 2 maybe. Like, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how this goes. Don't expect Diallo to play at all, right? He was very much a developmental prospect. He'll probably play most of his time in the G League, and he could be something. He's a super athletic guy in a couple of years, but I wouldn't count on anything at all this year.
No, it's a mixed bag with him. Some people were like, "Oh, remember he was like one of the top prospects," and other people were like, "That guy can't play basketball anymore." Don't know what's going on there. Do we want to talk about Nerlens Noel? I think we have to. This is a fantasy basketball podcast.
Great permanent producer.
Yeah.
Pick the spot where there's not going to be a lot of minutes available, right?
I mean, Steven Adams has got that spot on lockdown. Even in limited minutes, are you interested in Nerlens?
Well, here's what I'll say, okay? So I don't necessarily agree with this projection. I'll say that, but Mark Roberts has been known to fool me a time or two before. So he projected Jeremy Grant for 22 minutes and Nerlens Noel for 18 minutes. You want to guess who ranked higher?
I'm going to go with Nerlens Noel.
Yes. In 18 minutes, he is the 193rd ranked player. I think that's a pretty good projection. I think Grant will play a lot more than 22 minutes, but then maybe that's just me.
I do too. I think he'll play a lot more minutes than that.
So
maybe not a lot, but enough.
Here's what's sexy about Nerlens Noel in 18 minutes. That works out to a steal a game and 0.8 blocks.
Almost a block and a steal guy in 18 minutes.
Right? So if Steven Adams, I don't know, goes up for a dunk this preseason and breaks his hand.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah, Nerlens Noel could get interesting fast. There will be a moment this season where I will be probably trying to pick up Nerlens Noel off the waiver wire.
Yeah. I think I'm with you there. I think at some point I'm going to be streaming him at the very least in a standard league.
Well, and we said this before, right? Like if your league drafts 200 players, Nerlens Noel is probably a guy I'm going to try to target somewhere in that 200.
Yeah, and deeper leagues, I want him for sure.
Right, just on the upside too, that like he somehow finds his way into more minutes. Be that through.
Yeah, I mean, and I hope like he's interested in playing basketball this year. That'd be cool too.
Yeah, not trying to get a hot dog during the game and whatever tomfoolery he did last year in Dallas, right?
I mean, that was at least funny and clever.
I started covering the Mavs this year, and that was one of the first things that a fan brought up to me. It was like, yeah, we had some crazy stuff going last year. Nerlens Noel went to get a hot dog during the game. And I'm like,
you know what you should do is write a long, like retrospect, like a oral history of the Nerlens Noel hot dog game.
The New Orleans hot dog game.
The New Orleans Pelicans hot dog Noel game. You should do that. I would read that article, Tyler.
You say you never read my articles because you refuse to let your ad blocker allow you to.
That's true. I'm not turning that ad blocker off for nothing, Tyler.
I'm telling you, you can say you already whitelisted or you're choosing not to, but you don't listen.
I refuse to listen to anyone completely. You should know that by now. We've had a very long podcast. I haven't listened to a thing you said. Where can people find your work? Plug your work, Tyler.
So I write for a site on the Dallas Mavericks. It is called thesmokingcuban.com. We are the go-to source for any Mavericks information you need to know.
That is a very good name for a website for the Dallas Mavericks. And you get to write about the most exciting rookie this year. And we'll be talking about him when we get up to the Dallas Mavericks.
I think they're going to be kind of an exciting team, but we'll get there.
I agree. I think so too. So yeah, standard league Nerlens Noel, only maybe a stream every once in a while. Not that interested in. Let's talk about the big three guys on this team who we kind of already have a pretty good feel for. I really like the fact that Melo is not on this team anymore. I think that gives Paul George a little bit more opportunity to do more Paul George types of things instead of waiting for Melo to stop dribbling the ball. So let's talk about Paul George. Where are you going to draft old Paul George this year? I think per game he still played. 36 minutes a game. That's a lot of minutes, and he ended up finishing per game, I think 16th overall. It's pretty good last year.
I'm always looking at Paul George somewhere around that turn.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. He is to me.
10-team league. Probably not, but then 12 team, somewhere around that turn, right? 12, 13, 14, 15. Like that's where I'm at.
Yeah, he is in my permanent second tier. So I think you got your 1As and then your 1Bs. Who we will be talking about in other episodes. In the last episode, we talked about 2 1As with Curry and Kevin Durant. And I think Paul George is in my permanent second tier with old Jimmy Butler. And I think, you know what? Chris Paul kind of goes between 1B and second tier type of player. Dame is always underrated. And I'd love have Paul George there in the second round.
That's a yearly conundrum for me. I always find it, at least in a draft or two, where I'm deciding between Lillard and Paul George. And I'm always like, man. And then I usually go for Dame Lillard. But
Dame Lillard's a good choice. Dame Lillard is underrated.
I'm always fighting that battle against myself. I find myself in this war every year.
But let's say, a few more shots for Paul George. So, a few more points, maybe field goal probably stays the same or whatever. Trending up, trending down, plateaued. Where do you got Paul George next year?
Relatively plateaued. I think we know what Paul George is. He's great. I think with a guy like Paul George, a lot of times changes on the margin don't really exist in the sense that, like, okay, let's say he shoots more threes and he goes up to 3 threes. Well, then his field goal percentage takes a little bit of a hit and he winds up relatively at the same value.
Yeah, he's kind of in the exact same spot. And to actually gain on some of those first tier players, you're going to have to be doing a lot more than making a half a 3 more a game.
Right. He would literally have to up his assist to like 5, 4.5,
5+,
2 steals, right?
Which
get like up
doable.
0.7 blocks, like things like that, and those things probably get up to like 25.5 points a game. Like those things probably aren't going to happen. Some of them are possible, but probably not anything I would bet on.
Probably not on a team with Russell Westbrook, but we will talk about old Russie last. Let's talk about Steven Adams, the Thunder from down under.
That sounded like Star Wars, not Thunder.
Don't worry about that. It's all we could afford. We need more Patreon subscribers. Please go to patreon.com/watchingtheboxes to fund our Thunder sound drop budget. We would appreciate that. Actually, Steven Adams is a Kiwi, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, it's offensive to call him from Australia. They have a heated.
For a minute, I thought you said he's a key, isn't he? And I was like, key to what? And then I was like, oh, I understood.
He's also the key.
he owns the key to your heart.
He is a handsome devil. I wish he would just carry me around all day.
Oh, Michael,
that'd be great. He's a good-looking dude. Seems like a clever bloke.
So, I would like to get into this, right? So we know what Steven Adams is. Do you expect anything different from Steven Adams? First question I'll ask.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I think I really like Steven Adams. He's got an incredible field goal percentage, something that some people completely punt, which I kind of disagree with that. But he's a great center for exactly what he is. He's not a super great free throw shooter, but he doesn't shoot a huge volume. He's an old school center who doesn't make threes. He's got a great field goal percentage. He gets solid rebounds, not elite rebounds, and it gets you about a block a game. Like, he's a really good late round center.
So in Mark's rankings, okay, from 52 to pick 70, okay, which is a relatively small gap, right? Okay. Yeah. There are 9 centers in that range.
Ooh.
Okay. So let's play a little Steven Adams. Would you rather between these 9 centers?
Wow, that is some. You're like Rain Man over there, able to calculate how many centers. It took me 3. I'm still calculating how many games from a few days ago. The how many the Warriors games that Boogie will play if it's January like 16th. Let's see. I'm still counting. You don't
have enough toes. Right? Or fingers.
I ran out.
No, you're just confused.
I'm impressed, Tyler. You're a savant.
So there's actually a couple other guys who could be classified as centers, and Lauri Markkanen and Porzingis that I didn't even count.
I'm not counting Lauri Markkanen.
So DeAndre Jordan and Al Horford are the first 2. They're 52 and 53.
Drink for your Bulls reference, too. Is Timothy Mozgov in this list?
No, he is not. He is not.
Drink for your Mozgov reference, too, everybody. All you listeners out there.
So Horford, Jordan, Adams.
I think I'd rather have Al Horford because I play in mostly roto leagues, so I think he's more valuable in a roto league than Steven Adams. I think I would rather have DeAndre Jordan in a head-to-head league, but then Steven Adams. I still would rather have Horford, I think, overall. Maybe not in a certain punting strategy. I think I'd rather have DeAndre Jordan. But
Jordan shot better free throw percentage last year than Steven Adams. I'm almost positive.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. But at probably shot more free throws as well.
Well, it was like 3.6 to 4 a game difference.
Okay. Well, that's
So
enough. That's enough for me.
So Jordan shot more on a better percentage. They were both bad percentages. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I would take Steven Adams over DeAndre Jordan in a Roto league, and I'd take Horford over both of them in a Roto or head-to-head league.
Okay, so then
let me take that back. I'll take DeAndre Jordan over.
I think both those guys. Right? I think both those guys are locks to go over Steven Adams personally for me, but
yes.
To each their own. Okay, so then things get interesting. Okay, so let's just assume it's head to head, right? Because a lot of these guys shoot bad free throw percentages, and
a lot of people play head to head. A lot of bad free throw percentages.
Well, and here's the thing too, like in Roto leagues, right? Like Enes Kanter is probably going to get a big boost.
He's much more valuable, yes,
because he's going to shoot like 80%. Now that 80% comes on minimal volume, but still it's a very good percentage, which is what you want in Roto. So we'll throw that out. We'll just say it's all head to head. You can have Adams or Hassan Whiteside.
Wow.
That is 60 against 63 in Mark's rankings if you're keeping track.
Playing at home. Probably Hassan Whiteside in a head-to-head league. Maybe.
Ooh, that's interesting.
I don't like. You know what? I don't like Hassan Whiteside at all.
Here's what I feel like. Okay, I feel like Hassan Whiteside has a much higher ceiling.
Sure,
but last year, why did he only get like 26 minutes a game? Like what?
Yeah, what's going on there? And like nothing different happened in Miami. So,
and here's an underrated thing that people maybe necessarily don't remember. Whiteside was out of the league for a while. And maybe some of that is bubbling up, whatever that is that caused him to be out of the league. I don't know.
Whether it is motivation, whether it is simply like he figured out just how to play perfectly in a system with that team, and now that team is different a little bit, and he's lost a step. I don't know. Like I have no idea. Like he could have the yips. I don't know what's ever going on with Hassan Whiteside. I don't like Hassan Whiteside, but in a later part of the draft, I'd rather take the ceiling.
Well, you're kind of in the middle rounds right here, right? Like you're talking fifth, sixth round.
Yeah.
Round, you know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm taking Adams just for the safety of Adams. And
all right.
It depends. If I need an upside shot, right? Like I've got a pretty risky team already, and I'm like, hey, I'm either going to win or I'm going to go home and last, you know? Maybe I go for Whiteside. Larry Nance or Adams?
Adams.
Jared Allen.
Ooh. Kind of like Jared Allen.
Big ceiling on Allen, right? But you got to feel like Adams is probably much safer, steadier.
Definitely safer. Give me Jared Allen. I love the upside. He'll probably be everyone's favorite sleeper, so you probably won't get him anyway.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're gonna have to pay a top 50 price for Jared Allen, and that's not something I want to do.
Yeah, I'm not interested in him then.
Enes Kanter or Adams?
Enes Kanter, but I play in Roto leagues.
I feel like I might want Kanter even in head-to-head. Now, granted, Kanter's not going to give you the blocks and rebounds blocks and steals that you want, but he's going to give you big rebounds and points, and I feel like that might help you. Plus, he's going to shoot good percentages. If you care about that.
Yeah, he's also like going to be playing, I think, more minutes than or either the same or more minutes than he played last year, because there's no one else playing the center role. I guess, Mitchell Robinson. We talked about the Knicks already, and we're not sure about Mitchell Robinson. Yeah, he'll work his way into the rotation probably over the course of the year. But Enes Kanter's got that starting role. I think he plays quite a few minutes.
So the last two guys are Valanciunas and Nurkic.
Steven Adams over both of them.
Yeah, so I mean, but that's just kind of weird that there's that many centers right there, and I think Adams is kind of in the third, fourth center range in that group, and so
but there's a ton. He's kind of like right in the middle, or at least in the upper half of that group, and there's a ton sitting right around in that ranking system over on #basketball.com. but they're all probably overall total value is really, really close. So if you are in a casual league and people are like, Steven Adams, who cares? And Steven Adams starts dropping to the 6th, 7th round. Now you're getting a really good value for Steven Adams, while someone with the name Hassan Whiteside is probably not going to get that kind of drop. And you're going to get a really good value as Steven Adams late. So, focus on some of those other mid-tier players that you could actually pick up. Maybe someone like, I don't know, Jamal Murray, perhaps.
Here's another thing.
Tobias Harris. No one ever cares about Tobias Harris. He's a great fantasy player.
Here's another thing I'll say about if you play in a lot of leagues and there's that many centers kind of all bunched up, there's kind of two schools of thought, right? You pick your favorite and keep trying to get him, or you kind of diversify your assets.
Take the last available.
Right.
It's kind of like the kicker in fantasy football, which no one is playing, Tyler. We're not talking about fantasy football on this podcast.
And that's my point is like, I'm not necessarily like reaching up to get DeAndre Jordan or Al Horford. Like if I can get Steven Adams and pick 70 or 75 because he's the one who slipped,
great.
And that's probably what I'm jumping on. Or maybe it's Hassan Whiteside, or maybe it's Larry Nance, or maybe it's Enes Kanter, like whoever it happens to be.
And if he didn't slip, somebody probably will. All right, let's
talk. Well, other guys are going to want guards, and there's not that many guards in that range, right? So someone's going to be going guard.
Let's talk about the GOAT. Triple-double himself. Greatest player of all time. Greatest 5-time MVP. Russell Westbrook. Killing everybody on the Thunder. And killing their minutes and playing time and their production. Westbrook is a very polarizing player when it comes to fantasy. Obviously, he has probably one of the widest differences in rankings when it comes to roto versus head-to-head. Head-to-head, you can really build a team around someone like Russell Westbrook in roto, and especially last year with this, just kind of the free throws disappearing out of nowhere. And I think, Tyler, I think you said this was due to some rule changes.
What now?
Who said this? Was it you or was it somebody? Maybe I was listening to somebody else. Maybe it wasn't Tyler. I always think you know all this stuff. You're well read, well versed. There were some rule changes about the way you can, the way you have to do at the free throw line. You can't like walk away or like walk backwards or do something.
Yes, this was not me, but this was what he kind of blamed it on. So you used to be able to walk back and high five the two people behind you, right? Like the two guards, whatever you want to call them, that were behind the free throw line. And now you can't leave that little arc on the court. So you can like take one step back or two, but that's it. And those people have to come up and high five you. And he blamed his poor free throw shooting on the fact that he couldn't walk back and high five those people.
I would like to see the statistics. I'm sure they're out there of his first free throw percentage versus his second free throw percentage just to prove that out. But that drop in free throw was actually a huge deal. In roto leagues, you're basically punting turnovers with Russell Westbrook, and he's not a great three-point shooter, and he shoots at such a high volume. His field goal does really actually affect you more than you'd like. But then to throw in a over 10% drop in free throw with the volume that he shoots, he became he went from a guy that you should be drafting at the turn of the first round, a second tier or even to some people a first tier player, to a guy who maybe it's like a third round or kind of a kryptonite, kind of a roto kryptonite player.
He shot much better later on in the season, so I think he adjusted.
He got a little better, but it didn't get a lot better.
I think he'll be all right. I mean, he's good the whole offseason. I think that's going to go back up.
You think it's going to revert to the mean?
Yeah, but
80. What's your over under? I'm going to go 80.
78.
Ooh, so under 80. That's so 78 is kind of a big deal when you're shooting 7.5 free throws a game.
So, but here's what I'll say about it too, right? I'm with you that he in a 9-cat roto league, like he should be like a second round player, and he won't be.
No, he'll go in the first round in casual leagues, and he'll go early in the second round, probably in not so casual leagues. And that's like your ceiling, right?
Right? Yeah, like it's difficult to work with him in a 9-cat roto league because he hurts you in so many categories, like you outlined. In head to head, though, you could literally make him your number one player and not be wrong.
Yeah, you can just completely. Punting turnovers is always a smart thing to do. So you could just go that route. He's getting you a triple double from the point guard position, which is pretty insane. I think you're a little wrong taking him in with the number 1 overall pick, but if you're taking him in the bottom half of the first round, that's fine.
And so in head-to-head leagues, in Mark's rankings, it works out that he comes out 6th. And that's with the kind of you punt the 2 worst categories on, I believe. That's what I'm trying to make happen here, but I am not as
turnovers, and you're going to be punting field goal percentage, which is a pretty typical punt there for all the head-to-head kids out there. And Westbrook is even with so Mark Roberts has got him shooting 78%. With a very similar volume per usual, and he is the 3rd best player in the league, slightly ahead of Anthony Davis and slightly below Steph Curry. So just personally, in my opinion, I'm still going James Harden over Russell Westbrook every time.
I find that I almost never own Russell Westbrook. And the reality of the situation is, if I get a top 5 pick, I'm usually on like Curry or Harden or Anthony Davis. Yeah. And if I have like a 7 or 8 pick, Russell Westbrook, where I'm thinking about Russell Westbrook, he's usually gone.
Yeah, the only way I'm going to end up with Russell Westbrook, because I just think of his value, is if everyone kind of looks at him in the same way, and he does drop to the second half or near the turn of the first round. I would take him in the near the end of the first round and be able to pair him with someone like Nikola Jokic.
But that's
that would
my
be
point.
A pretty fun team.
That's my point. It never happens, though. I always feel like he goes in the top 5, and when I have a top 5 pick, he's not in my top 5.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to put a top 5 pick on Russell Westbrook.
Right?
He's even with a triple double from the point guard position, he's not that valuable. He's like not heads and tails more valuable than everyone else. Like, even if, let's just say we're punting free throws as well, right? Mark Roberts' projections have him as still behind James Harden, but does put him Westbrook solidly in second place. So you're going the old punt, field goal, punt, free throw, punt, turnover route, a very typical route. You can do that with Harden. You could do that with Giannis. You could do that with LeBron.
But here's the thing.
I think you're fine.
Here's the thing I think that makes Westbrook always go higher than maybe he should too, is the things he does good are the quote-unquote sexy categories, right? Like, he gets a lot of points, he gets a lot of rebounds, he gets a lot of assists. Those are the 3 categories people go goo-goo over, right?
Yeah, they're the biggest numbers. People like big numbers. It's psychology.
Right? So I just always feel like maybe Westbrook goes a little bit too high. And yeah, you can build punt strategies where he's the 1st or 2nd ranked player. Like, it is possible.
Yeah, but I don't like to build my punt strategy before the league starts. So I'm just gonna have to maybe a middle or late first round pick. Westbrook's there. I'm in a head-to-head league. I say screw it. I'm gonna do it, and then I have to build my punt strategy around Russell Westbrook when I don't even know what my second pick's gonna be. It's certainly doable. It's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna lose you the league picking Westbrook early in a head-to-head league, but I just much rather have one of these other guys.
Here's the thing that maybe goes in Westbrook's favor is he always gets his, man.
Right? That's for sure.
Like,
And he's indestructible.
right. Well, I don't know about that. I won't say that, but I will
He's
say
indestructible. I will say it.
that if there's any player on the court that, like, when I watch basketball, I think to myself, like, man, that guy really wants to get his stats. It's also Westbrook. Like, he gives a care about his stats.
He's going to play as many games as many minutes as his body will let him.
Well, and he's like stealing a rebound from his teammate, right? Like we made fun of Julius Randle for this in the past, right? He'll literally like fight his teammate for a rebound so he can get the rebound for himself.
Yeah, and if you're in one of those silly leagues that are double-double, triple-double type of leagues, he becomes like the number one player, and that's why you shouldn't play in those leagues.
Yeah, but that's a whole different story for a different time.
That is certainly a different story. I think that is it for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Do you have anything else you want to mention about this team, Tyler? Any Kyle Singler shout-outs?
So
Patrick
deep league,
Patterson, perhaps?
deep league flyer, I might take on Patrick Patterson. This team doesn't really have anyone who's a power forward.
Pat.
We've seen Pat be all right as far as fantasy before. I would not hate taking a deep league like 14-16 team late flyer on Patrick Patterson. He didn't play enough last year, so he's kind of out of most people's ethos, right? They're not even thinking about him. So
yeah, he does have the ability to put in decent minutes, put up some fantasy-friendly enough numbers where if you got him late in a deep league, he would have more value than probably where you drafted him. I like Patrick Patterson. He's all right. Let's see. Yep, I think that's it for the Oklahoma City Thunder. If you guys are like what you are hearing on this podcast, if you like our wild tangents or our Timothy Mozgov related drinking games, please rate and review us on whatever app you are listening to this to, or tweet at us with feedback, questions for your team, stuff you'd like to hear during our preseason stretch of podcasts at Watch the Boxes for me, and Tyler is at Tyler P. Watts, Watts. And if you want to subscribe to our Patreon, get in our Dynasty League, and that is patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. We really appreciate all those Patreon subscribers that are already out there. And Tyler, you got to get on that Dynasty League rules. You're in trouble, man.
94.5% written, Mike.
You're in trouble. All right. We will catch all of you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Watching the Boxes podcast.
Keep going.
I was doing my newscaster voice. Did you like it?
No, it's terrible.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, or if you use the promo code BOXES, you will get a free entry to your first draft. I'm your host, Mike Cashman, and joining me, as always, is the mysterious Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Hello, this is Cliff Cletus for CBS News. I have brought to you today to tell you that the Dynasty League rules are almost complete.
Wow, breaking news, everyone. Someone named Cliff has joined the podcast, broken into my house, and is announcing that the Dynasty League rules are almost posted. And the spots are going quick out there on that Dynasty League, Tyler. People are excited about it.
I feel like by the time you're listening to this, not only are the rules written and potentially posted, but there might not be any spots left. So if you want to get in, this might be your last chance right now that if you're hearing my voice to sign up on Patreon and get the last spot, because there is not a lot left.
No, there is not. That is patreon.com/watching the boxes if you want to be in the super secret Tyler's Special Dynasty League that has a a long list of rules and guidelines that you have to follow while playing the Dynasty League. So it's kind of exciting. There might be even some crazy categories. Is that true that there's a crazy category in there, Tyler?
There will be no crazy categories, Mike. I cannot stand those leagues, and you know that.
I'm with you 100%. I am a traditionalist. I'm willing to hear out some of the, I guess, more progressive fantasy basketball analysts out there, all three of them, and who want to try things like efficient field goal or assist to turnover ratio. I think there's some merit to a handful of those things, but all you double, triple double people out there, just get the hell out of here. But sign up for Patreon, but then get the hell out of here.
I will say that though, like if there were good stats, I wouldn't mind it. Like if there was stats that went to you being an efficient basketball player, I wouldn't mind it.
No, I wouldn't mind either. I think it has to replace something that already is used as a category. I don't think we need more than 9 categories.
With you there.
Yeah, I'm not interested in having more than 9 categories. But I'm also not terribly interested. Oh, go ahead. I'm also not terribly interested in the team that we are talking about. Another good segue to an exciting episode of Watching the Boxes. We're here talking about the Portland Trailblazers. They had a not terribly exciting offseason. Once again, they're kind of in cap space hell over there, just burning tax money. They did re-sign Nurkic, which was probably a little, I'm not sure I like that move, especially with all the other money they got floating around there. But I did like their signing of Seth Curry. They got Nick Stauskas, which feels like you don't need him if you got Seth Curry. They did draft Anthony Simmons and Gray Trent Jr., which is a real person. His name is Gray Trent. Gray Trent. I like that name. Old Gray Trent Jr. Ed Davis did end up on the Nets along with Shabazz Napier, and Tyler. One of Tyler's favorite players was waived, Georgios Papagiannis. You there, man?
now?
Say it again.
Are you alive?
There you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. You good?
Yes.
What's going on over
I am
there?
Chrome.
You all
Dude,
right?
Chrome just closed out again for
Mm,
no flipping reason.
that's no good.
Chrome is down tonight. Were you just reading the players on the team again?
Yes. Once again, save a spot, so at least it's like a good segue. All right.
I enjoy reading the players on the team.
So
Like Walter Cronkite. I feel like we should just start someone over. I did my CBS voice. That ruined it. Gave CBS a free plug.
yeah, we can't afford the lawsuit from CBS.
They're probably gonna sue us now.
So I basically said they waived one of your favorite players, Georgios Papagiannis.
Dude, Papa G, baby.
It's one of your favorite players.
Dude, I don't know how he became one of my favorite players, but all
You
right.
talk about him all the time.
All right, let's do this. I feel like this team's actually got some interesting stuff to say about it.
A little bit, right? It's a lot of the same group of guys, but the squad is a little. It feels a little bit different this year for, I don't know, for some reason, but beginning of one of these old 30 team review play preseason. I'm not going to do the long title. You can listen to the last episode for the long title. Portland Trailblazers. What is your most interesting thread going into the season for them?
Well, a lot of their team is kind of status quo, right? Like we didn't see a ton of changes, so probably the most interesting thing is who gets that starting small forward spot, right? Like that's kind of something we talk about every year, and they got a couple interesting guys there who could fill that role and get some minutes, right? Then
I think we always kind of were like, see, that's not that terrible interest because it's the same. Like, is Mo Harkless good to play? Is he good to figure something out? Is he not?
Here's my. There's two guys on this team that I'm kind of really looking forward to seeing. One of them is not going to be a starter, but I still think he could be good for fantasy, and that was Seth Curry. Okay, he's gonna be forgotten. Okay, because he did not play a single minute last year. Plus, there were a lot of people last year super pumped about him, and he burned everybody by the Mavs kept saying he was coming back, right? And he never showed up.
That's true.
So no one's gonna want Seth Curry, I think, and that opportunity. Now the question becomes, how many minutes does Curry get? Going in his favor, he is one of the absolute best three-point shooters in the league.
Yeah, he is a great off the bench kind of offensive spark. I like Seth Curry a lot. He's a great per minute, maybe not per minute, but he's a great fantasy player when it comes to getting close to starters minutes. But he's behind CJ McCollum and Dame Lillard. So, is he going to be the only guy coming off that bench in the guard spot and just playing along with one of the other two guards? Is that his role on this team? Because they do got Wade Baldwin. Nick Stauskas is alive still.
You're making all those funny jokes again, aren't you?
I'm just saying, like, he's the front runner for sure, right?
Yeah, really the only other guy who will probably play minutes at a guard spot will be Evan Turner, and will get some minutes at the two, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously Dame and CJ, right? We that's a given.
Yeah, they're
so
penciled in.
So Curry in 22 minutes in Mark's rankings is the 165th ranked player.
That's not bad, and that's only in 22 minutes.
And here's another thing I'll say.
It's bumped out to 28, right?
Right, in a deep league, I'm super interested because not only do you have the fact that he's going to play some and give you some value, but then on top of that, you have the fact that if McCollum, Lillard, Evan Turner go down, the minutes ought to open up pretty quick, and Curry could be real interesting. So in a deep league, he's another kind of guy I'm definitely targeting and want to have on my team in case that injury does happen.
Yeah, I'm 100% in my big leagues. I'm going to be picking up Seth Curry.
And
I'll probably even reach for him because if you do remember, per game in just 29 minutes for Dallas back in 16-17, he was getting a steal, 13 points, 2 3-pointers a game, almost 3 assists, and shooting very good percentages, leading him into a top 100 player.
here's what I'll say about him too. Like you will see one of the major sites have him ranked like some ridiculous number, like 512. Because people forget, man. They'll forget. And he's not starting, so that's not making people think about him either.
But he's NBA caliber player. He's got NBA caliber offense. I feel like this system will be even better for him than the system in Dallas. Simply because, I mean, couldn't he fit in and do mostly everything that CJ McCollum is doing?
Yeah, and I think he might be a little bit of an underrated passer too. Like when he gets the ball in his hands, he's not a bad passer.
No, he's not. He's had some pretty good games in the past for Dallas. So to me, he's kind of the sleeper on this team.
Right, definitely interested.
Yeah, I'm interested too. In standard leagues, I mean, he could be one of the ceiling is there, right? So higher ceiling than most. Completely forgotten player. He could be one of my final round picks if available. Would you pick him up in a standard league?
Would I? Yes. Will I? Yet to be determined, right? We'll see. When we get a little bit closer, we'll see who the market is sleeping on.
Tyler is playing his hand close to his vest. He doesn't want me to steal any of his players like last year when I took Ricky Rubio from you.
Now, here's what I think will happen, though. There'll be somebody in those last couple rounds, like 2 or 3 guys I'm probably more interested in, just because I feel like they'll have a bigger role as far as minutes, and they'll be getting slept on just as much.
Yeah, and all it takes is one person to go, well, he was ranked 76th per game a couple years ago. I'm gonna take him with my 9th pick.
I don't know, man. I feel like
someone will do it.
I feel like most players, though, don't look back that far, right? They just want to see what they saw last year.
Yeah.
Why you see Gordon Hayward split up a little bit this year? Like Gordon Hayward will be going outside the top 50 in some drafts. So like, Gordon Hayward didn't even play last year, bro.
He'll be super underrated, and he could even get better than he was when he was healthy. So I'm with you there. A lot of these guys are just, they are gone for a year, and the casual fan just completely forgets that they even exist. You'll probably have more people draft Seth Curry on accident thinking it was Steph Curry than you will see people reaching for Seth Curry above the 10th round. What do you think about that prediction?
That's probably fair to say.
I think that's a good prediction. I want to talk about Al Farouk Aminu. I really do. Because I think he's another name, not a sexy name, not an interesting guy. I mean, he might be an interesting person. He might be an interesting guy in real life. Like, I don't know anything about.
I think that's the first time anybody ever said that other than his wife, maybe.
No, I think he might be real cool. He might be like going out, got a lot of hobbies and stuff. He might, I don't know. I have no idea.
I feel like that's the first time somebody said, you know who I want to talk about?
Al Farouk Aminu. Well, that's the reason I want to talk about him. It's like nobody wants to talk about him. That's you just made my point for me, Tyler. Thank you. That was a very good segue. Al Farouk Aminu is going to play, probably going to start. They kind of went with him over the second half of the season. I know he had what would be considered a pretty terrible playoffs, if I remember correctly. But he's one of those guys that is often overlooked. He doesn't score a lot. So, in a couple episodes ago, Tyler was talking about Draymond Green and punting points. This is a guy, when you punt points, he starts to look even better. But he's going to give you a steal a game, over half a block a game, close to 8 rebounds. He's going to play decent minutes. He's going to shoot almost a couple threes a game. Those are a lot of weird stats from a guy who a lot of people just completely forget. And there's enough weird stats there, even though his shooting percentage is absolute trash, that he is relevant as a streamer in standard leagues and in certain punting configurations. He should be drafted in standard leagues.
If you're telling me this guy gets 28 minutes a game, which I think is a fairly safe bet,
Yeah,
I'd say he's probably even standard league ownable. He's just not sexy, so no one wants to do it, right? Someone's always going for an upside guy in that range, and I don't blame them for that.
I think it's hard to own those guys who are borderline waiver wire, because when you, even if Al-Farouq Aminu is getting you that steal, and
Well, here you're losing out in the non-roto league. You're losing out on so much value of the streaming, right? Like I could have 7 games of a relative Al-Farouq Aminu production, or I can have however many the Blazers play that week, be it 4, be it 3.
Yeah, and what's if like Kelly Olynyk's having a good week? Like pick him up, drop Al-Farouq Aminu. Who cares? Nobody cares about Al-Farouq Aminu.
Yeah, so I mean he's in that streaming class, but if you did own him the whole season, that wouldn't be I guess my point when I say ownable is he's gonna land inside the top 125.
Yeah,
probably.
Definitely. I'd say I would bet on that he in totals will be definitely in the top 25, maybe in the top 100, just because of all the weirder stats that he produces. And if you just kept him, you're maybe in a bigger roto league. He doesn't shoot enough field goals to really piss you off too much. But I just think he's well underrated and draftable, and I think a lot of people overlook him. That's why I brought him up.
I just wish they'd give more minutes to Harkless, because we talk about this every year, right? He could be so good, and especially for fantasy, if he just get the minutes 28, 30.
All right, could be the year. Just go into it. Just do the whole thing. Do the normal Mo Harkless rant.
All right, this could be the year. I mean, there's not a ton of wings on this roster that are compelling, but it probably won't ever happen because we want it to happen. But I mean, he's a 1-1 guy in 25 minutes a game, probably.
If I could give Mo Harkless 30 minutes or Al-Farouq Aminu 30 minutes, I'd give Mo Harkless those minutes.
Yeah, and Mo Harkless, he's a guy I own in a very deep dynasty league, and I've owned him since the league started, I think. And I just always hope that he becomes a little bit more than what he is, and it never.
Yeah, I mean, we're big Mo Harkless fans. We always are. He's always at some point definitely streamable during the year. In fact, he finished the year playing more extended minutes and was actually looking pretty good. He was ownable in standard leagues there in the second half of the season, and so a guy to always keep an eye on during the season. Probably not a guy you want to draft.
So here's
in a deeper league, but like I just want to ask you a quick question. How old do you think? I think you know how old he is, so I'm not going to ask you how old you think Mo Harkless is. How old do you think the casual fan thinks Mo Harkless is?
Probably pushing 30, but he's only 25.
He's 25 years old. Everybody, he's 25. He's been in the league 19 years. And he's 25 years old. It's amazing.
Right? He's one of those guys who came in when he was super young, so he's got a lot of years under his belt, and he's only 25. And, man, I'll say it one more time. All he's got to do is beat out Evan Turner and Al-Farouq Aminu, and there's a lot of playing time available.
It is. I think it's hard to beat out Evan Turner because he's kind of one of those guys you put in, and you're like, this is fine.
Well, and Evan Turner also fools you with like a real big game where he scores like 30 points, and then you're like, if he could just do that more often, and then it never happens again.
Yeah, someone always picks him up after that big game, and he sits on their bench for a while, and he gets streamed a few times, and then he's back. He's another one of the streaming class.
He's the fool's gold.
The lower streaming class, in my opinion.
That's what I like to call him. He's fool's gold, man.
He certainly is. This team
does something like, that's a find, and then he just nothing.
Yeah, the second tier of this team is a little bit of a fool's gold. It's hard to it's hard to deal with. So let's stop talking about the second tier
And
players.
here's one thing I'll say
No, go
about them
ahead.
all too, right?
Yeah.
Like some people are gonna get hyped up on Zach Collins this year, right? Like I feel like Terry Stotts, maybe more than any coach in the league, loves to chop and change his rotation, right? Like you said it yourself just a minute ago. There'll be a time where he's giving Mo Harkless like 30 minutes a game consistently for like 5 or 10 games in a row.
Pick him up.
And then Harkless will be down to like 18, and he'll be
then-
giving those minutes to Aminu and Seth Curry and Wade Baldwin and like just random.
I'll be livid. I'll be very pissed. You'll hear about it in future podcasts.
Right, and then like he'll go back to it, like 20
For no
years
reason.
later. He'll just Mo Harkless might need 30 minutes tonight, and then he'll do it for 5 more games. Then he'll decide he's playing 12 minutes games. It's like his rotations don't often make any sense to me. Now maybe he's just a smarter guy than me, and he's got it all figured out. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he's perfectly playing the matchups, Tyler. You never know.
But it's always convenient because it always seems like it's a stretch of games, and I'm like, if he was just playing the matchups, it'd be like one night, and then it'd be another night.
You would think,
right? Like I don't think that the NBA worked on the schedule with him, and were like, hey, for the next 5 games, you should definitely play Al-Farouq Aminu 30 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, and I think you're going to see a lot of the same with the Portland Trail Blazers this year. But let's talk about Justin Nurkic. Kind of a
Justin? Did you just say Justin?
Justif. I said Justif.
Justif?
Yeah.
You want to like go for another one?
No, I don't. It's Justif Nurkic. That's how I'm going to say it, and you're going to have to live with it because I am from the Midwest.
So that gives you an excuse
and
to
not
just
the
butcher
Balkans.
names.
Yeah, it does. It gives me a really good excuse.
But you got the second part right. How did you get the last thing right?
I was in the Balkans one time, and it was hard for them to say my name. I didn't chastise them for not perfectly saying my name. I'm not going to do a Balkans accent. Those people are great people. I love them.
Come on, say it like they said it. Just say your name how they said it. Come on.
I will not besmirch the good people of that area of the world. They are all excellent.
Okay, one more time on how you say Nurkic's first name. Then
Justin Nurkic is.
Dude,
I feel like he's another.
Hold on, because I just want to say this. It's real easy to say. It's you, like me and you went for dinner. Sup. That's all you got to say. You suck. That's it.
You suck, Nurkic is to me another fool's gold. There's a lot of fool's gold on this team. A guy who did start to play a little bit better, got paid, obviously, has flashes of top, I'd say 75, top, maybe even top 50 type of production, but is not consistent at all. And I know he played better down the stretch last year, but overall per game, he played 26 minutes per game last year, over 79 games, and was the 109th ranked player. He shoots a very bad free throw percentage. He is not a modern center. He's an old school center, so no threes. 14-9. So we were talking about in the previous episode, we're talking about the Thunder. You're talking about guys like Steven Adams, old school center, all in the mix. With players like Nurkic. He's not an elite block guy. He's a good block guy. He's a good field goal guy, so he's got that going for him. He can be a double-digit rebounder, but sometimes doesn't. I mean, how do you feel about Nurkic going into the season? He's 24. He could improve. He could kind of get it together. So the ceiling is there. I just think the variance on where he could end up next year is incredibly high.
I think he's falling into the Jonas Valanciunas category in this sense. We've been saying for the last how many years, right? Like, oh, he's a great permanent producer, and if he just get more minutes, and he just get the role where he was the absolute starting.
If he would
center.
just close games, even though he can't close games,
right? And we saw it. He moved to Portland, and there was nobody to hold him back. Right?
Whoa! Hold on. Are you really going to say that about Miles Turner? Not
Miles
Miles Turner. Myers Leonard. Damn.
Oh, I was gonna say Miles Turner's on this team, man. If Miles
Are
Turner
you
was on
really
this
gonna
team,
say that about Myers Leonard? I
yeah,
got my M Sinners mixed up.
Myers Leonard is not good, man. He
You are
can't.
correct. You are 100% correct about that.
He can't guard a ham sandwich.
I think he could have guarded a ham sandwich
No, he
if
can't.
he was hungry enough.
He could eat a ham sandwich, but he couldn't guard it. So yeah, I just think Nurkic is what we saw. I don't know that he's gonna really be any better, but what he is fine. Like it's draftable. It's a top 70 player probably, but it's not a top 50 player.
Yeah, he's in those middle tier centers along with Steven Adams. You talk about Hassan Whiteside. There's a whole group of them. We talked about him in the
Jared
last episode.
Allen, Enos Kanter,
Yeah.
Joshua Chunas,
But I would
the
say
dregs
that,
of the centers.
yeah, but I would say that Nurkic does have a very alluring upside. Like his ceiling feels higher than a lot of those guys.
Oh, I don't know about that. I feel like Whiteside has a much higher ceiling. I feel like Jared Allen has a much higher ceiling.
I feel like there's a
Whiteside be like a top 15 player, man. I don't think
really. You think Whiteside's is going to block 4 blocks a game and get like I have 4 blocks a game again? I don't see that happening.
Well, I don't think he'll get to that level again. But would it surprise me if Whiteside switched it on, played 30 minutes, and blocked like 2.5, 3 shots a game?
Sure. I mean, I guess that is
that's possible, right? Like I'm not saying that's a high probability.
I think I'd rather bank on Nurkic being a solid, just like 14 and 10 guy with a block and a half.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Like if you're telling me I have to pick between one of those two today, I'd probably take Nurkic over him. But I don't know that Nurkic has a much higher ceiling.
Well, I think that's all right. Well, okay, fair. I guess absolute ceiling. What about probable ceiling?
And that's what I mean. That's why I take Nurkic. So I feel like I feel like the most probable outcome, right? So like we talk about the 50% range of what's probably going to happen, the most likely 50% of their outcomes, I think Nurkic finishes better than Whiteside. But I think if we talk about the top 5% of their outcomes, Whiteside's is much higher.
I don't think it's much higher. I think that's kind of what I'm getting. I don't think it's much higher. If you played Justin Nurkic, Yusef Nurkic, 33 minutes a game.
So why can he not get those minutes? Do you know?
Yeah, well, he is very slow laterally, and he fouls a lot.
Yeah, he fouls a ton.
Yeah.
That's
but Hassan Whiteside isn't. I'm talking about a hypothetical ceiling here. I'm not talking about a reality. If
hear me out
Hassan
on this,
Whiteside's hypothetical ceiling has the same caveats.
Hear me out on this though, and this is one thing I've said to Mark for years. Mark's always been big on Nurkic, and I've been saying this for years. He fouls too much, and he's just not a guy in the modern NBA. They want to play late in games, and most of the time it's because of fouls, maybe even more than the on-court issues. He misses time. He misses minutes during games because he fouls. He gets 2 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the first quarter, and he's out.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I just don't ever really see him getting much more. Like he could get 30, but if you're telling me 33, like I don't think that's even in the 5 highest percent probable outcome for Nurkic. I just don't.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'm not gonna argue the validity. There it is of his ability to stay on the court, because you're 100% right, and that is probably why he is being where I'm going to pick him, probably in that, I guess in that 6th round ish area, 7th round area amongst those bottom centers. And also, that the per game for Hassan Whiteside, I guess his rebounds and blocks are going to be much more dominant in that per 36. So I'm going to concede that Nurkic's ceiling is close to Hassan Whiteside's. I still do think, though, in the perfect world of that 36, he is seeing games where he could in 36 minutes. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's crazy to see someone who's averaging 20 and 14 with 2 blocks.
You're talking about Nurkic or Whiteside?
Nurkic, because if you look at Hassan, he's gonna average better blocks and better rebounds. But like that's what you had to ask. Who are you talking about?
Well, my point being is like if we start allowing 10 fouls in the game, Nurkic could do that.
And that's a valid point.
But we're not gonna do that. So, and that's like people ask me this all the time when it comes to rankings, right? Like, well, are you ranking this player on their upside or what do you like? What are the rankings based on?
It's got to be all those things, right? It's got to be a little bit of their upside, but it's got to be a majority of the probable minutes and the probable time on the court. It's got to be all of those things.
So to me, when I'm doing my personal rankings, okay, upside is probably 10 to 20% of it. I'm putting a percentage number on it. And the majority of it, like the 60%, is, or 65 or 70% of it is what I think this player is going to do, like their most probable outcome.
Yeah.
And then the whatever that's left, the 5, 10, 15, 20% is what is this player's absolute floor, right? Like some players, their absolute floor is they could literally not play a minute. And you have to factor that in, right? Like, ooh, I like this guy. I think I like what he can do on the court, but he might actually never play a minute. That's a real thing.
Yes.
And so my rankings are kind of a bacon of all those things, but the majority of it, right? Like I'm not going to put Hassan Whiteside playing 30 minutes or 32 minutes in my rankings because I don't think that's the most probable outcome. Same thing with Nurkic. I think Nurkic's absolute ceiling for minutes is like 31. I won't say any more than that.
Even that I feel is like a little high.
Yeah, but that's an absolute ceiling. Like if everything broke right in Nurkic's year, he got
top
31. Right.
Or not the top, I guess the far right side of the bell curve.
Right. And Nurkic kind of does have I mean, maybe not on this team, but when he played in Denver, right, like he was one of those guys who had the ceiling of like he could literally play like 10, 12 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And that's
Can
scary.
You believe there's a world where Nurkic was playing over Jokic?
Oh yeah, I can.
And that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, he's also a couple years older, right? And Jokic made some bad defensive plays early on in his career.
Sure.
And that was one of the reasons why they played Nurkic. I think it's just like he was killing them on defense. Sure, he could do a lot of great things on offense, but he was not doing anything on defense, and he's gotten better. Props to him, and he's a great player now.
Yeah, we will be talking about Jokic in a future episode in our 30-team previews here that we're doing on Watch the Boxes. Let's get to the cream of the crop here in Portland. I'm talking about Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum. Dame Lillard, obviously a top tier player. We talked about in the last episode kind of a 1A, 1B, and second tier type player. And Dame Lillard is one of those guys, along with Chris Paul, that sometimes I feel like they're in my 1B and sometimes I feel like they're in my second tier. And I always kind of regret not taking either one of those guys if I end up not getting them. I wish I would have got Dame Lillard. Tyler, you're a big fan of Dame. And there's a lot of reasons to be a big fan of Dame. Like, would you put him in your top 10?
For head-to-head leagues, I think he's in my top 10. Sure.
Wow. All right. Nice.
Now he's like
in a roto leagues. He's close to my top 10.
He might fall out of my top 10 if we see something good from Kawhi Leonard this preseason.
Yeah, that's true. Kawhi Leonard is an X factor out there. But like
because
the fact that you're just saying like, okay, yeah, he's in my top 10. You know, we're talking about a first round player.
oh yeah, I think he should be. I think he's somewhere in that turn. You know what I mean? Like 10, 11, 12. And I can't really argue. There's a lot of guys in that category, right? Like you got Kawhi, John Wall. Him and John Wall is a debate I have often in my life. Him and Paul George, we talked about that.
Yep, Chris Paul's always up there. Jimmy Butler's underrated, but
Right.
in the mix up there.
Victor Oladipo is kind of worming his way in there.
I think
Joel
what
Embiid,
what
Jokic.
sets Dame Lillard apart from those guys, I think, just a little bit, is first off, he plays a ton of minutes, and he's an elite scorer. From the point guard position, you're getting those almost Klay Thompson-esque threes, along with 6 to 7 assists. Now he isn't great at steals, but he's not terrible. And he is an elite free throw percentage guy because of the volume that he shoots, and he shoots over 90%. Where he's going to kill you is that field goal percentage, and even that is like, it's not the worst. It's not great, but it's not bad.
Yeah, so I'm big on Dame. I love some Dame Lillard. Not a ton to say about him, I don't think.
Yeah, you know what's a fun, if you could get it. We talked about the Thunder in our last episode. A Westbrook before the turn and a Dame Lillard after the turn.
Sign me up.
So that's you're punting. I guess you're punting field goals, but Dame Lillard doesn't really turn the ball over that much. So you're kind of negating his turnovers for a point guard. Under 3 turnovers a game is pretty good these days.
Yeah, but you're crushing it in points, assists, rebounds.
Yeah,
threes. You're looking pretty strong.
Dame is Dame, everybody. Don't you worry your pretty heads. Let's talk about CJ McCollum. I think consensus about CJ McCollum is kind of is drifting a little bit over last year. He often, at least in per game value, he finished in the top 30 in 2016-17. He was a top 40 player in 15-16. And he ended up overall per game the 50th ranked player in 9 cat across the board. But the last 2 to 3 months, he was sinking into the bottom half of the top 100. Now he made that up by playing 81 games, and that 81 games really does help a ton. And he's played 81, 80, 80, which has put him as a top 35 player over those last 3 seasons. So totals wise, you're getting your numbers. You're going to get those statistics. But per game value, which I do look at for more roto leagues because it's all about quality starts. He isn't really doing anything super less than he used to. I think I've said this before. My opinion on him is like the league is getting better, and CJ McCollum is just CJ McCollum. So he's always as good as he's been. He just, quite frankly, isn't as good as the league around him anymore.
Well, and here's another thing to say about him is there's just nothing really that stands out. He's one of those players that's like all kind of just good.
Yeah.
Nothing great. Like it's all kind of blah. And he's a guy I'll admit to not owning that much, right? That there's always someone like Marc Gasol or Klay Thompson or Bradley Beal or a point guard like Eric Bledsoe or Drew Holiday or Kemba Walker. But there's always somebody for me to pick over CJ McCollum.
Yeah, like let me read. I'll read you Mark's projections. Who would you rather have? 45% shooting, 90% free throw, 2.2 threes, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, or same percentage, 45, 85 instead of 90, 2.4 threes, 21 points. So nice little bump there, but 3.7 and almost 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal.
Yeah,
Like
right?
that's basically the same player with a few extra points, right? Which one of those players would you rather have?
Probably the first player.
Yeah, so like I mean, I guess you would go with the guy. I guess you would go with either one. Like I guess if you wanted to be like, okay, I'm getting an extra few points, I'll go with the few points. The extra few points guy is CJ McCollum. Like CJ McCollum is probably going to go, at the beginning of the 4th round into the 3rd round. The other guy there was Jamal Murray.
Yeah,
You're probably
right.
going to see outside of sharp leagues, you're probably going to see Jamal Murray more in the 5th round and 6th round. You're getting the same guy,
right? And I mean, he ranks 28th in Mark's rankings, which is good.
Yeah, he's going to play a lot of games,
but like, there's so many guys in that range where I'm just like, I'd rather have him. I'd rather have him. I'd rather have him. I'd rather have him.
Yeah, like I'm not getting excited about CJ McCollum. I think he's just a good building, he's a good building block if you can get him at value. And I think just the way his name recognition and the way major sites rank him, I don't think you're going to be able to get him at value.
I'm with you.
You're going to see him drafted over guys like Gary Harris, Jamal Murray. You're probably going to see him drafted in that Klay Thompson range, which, I'd much rather have Klay Thompson.
I'm with you there.
So I'm not terribly excited about CJ McCollum going into next year. And also, there was that outlier, not last season, but 2 seasons ago, he did shoot like 48% from field goal. And you called that's going to revert. It did. It reverted. So that was a very good call by Tyler last season. And I don't know about Portland. Pretty boring team. Is there anyone else on this team you want to talk about? You mentioned Zach Collins, but like other than like deep leagues and possibly streaming him when he ends up starting a random game, like I think his fantasy game's all right.
Well, I mean, I just think maybe you could see him play some 4. And if he plays some 4 next to Nurkic, or if they decide to go a little smaller and play Collins at the 5, he could get some minutes. And he's interesting because he's 20 and he was a high draft pick. And
yeah, like it seems like he has the ability to hit a 3, along with playing that traditional center position. I don't think he does anything of those counting stats like blocks and steals. Like he's not crazy at any of those, but they're if let's say he's getting 32 minutes, which I don't think he's going to. That those become a little interesting.
He ranks 216th in 23 minutes in Mark's rankings. So I mean, it's not like anything super sexy,
he's
but
gonna have to start to be relevant.
But at the same time, like, if you're taking an upside flyer at the end of a deeper league draft, like, there's probably worse players to do it on than a 20-year-old kid who's shown the ability to hit a 3 and get some rebounds. And
yeah, you're probably right. I think that's it for Portland. We kind of hit all of the major players there anyway. If you guys are liking what you're hearing, we appreciate you all listening. But we'd really appreciate it if you would rate and review us on whatever app you're listening to. And if you want to get a hold of us, leave us feedback, ask questions about your team, or you want to hear something particular going into the preseason, tweet at us. Tyler is at Tyler P. Watts, Watts. And you can find me at Watch the Boxes. And if you are interested in the Tyler Dynasty League or the Mike Boring Redraft League, check out patreon.com, subscribe. It really helps the podcast. It allows us to get really cool drops like the one that we did for the Thunder episode. You'll have to go listen to that one. And that's patreon.com/watching the boxes. We appreciate everybody who's already subscribed to that. All of you are super cool and you are really helping us out. We will catch you next time for our next team. Thanks, everybody. All right, you want to do one more with the Nuggets, or?
that's up to you, man. I don't care.
All right.
Fucking Denver, man. That fucking John Denver.
All right, let's do it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, where if you use the promo code BOXES, you will get a free entry to your first draft. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is the illustrious Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
A great day.
It's a great day. Has
Sure.
it been a great day, Tyler?
I don't know. Everything's flooding around me, so it really hasn't been that good of a day. But I wanted to make the listeners feel good about themselves, Mike.
Well, I'm sorry, everybody. Half the world's underwater, the other half's on fire. I'm not sure how many years we will all have left. This is a very dire episode of Watching the Boxes, but you can't take solace that the fantasy basketball season is approaching us, and so you at least will have that to look forward to.
I will tell you something.
The burning earth.
I will tell you something that I found funny. So I like to use this.
You're trying to lighten up the podcast, Tyler. I like that.
This site called Spot Rack, right? Like they talk a lot about the contracts and stuff.
Okay.
And so they have the ages of every player on each team. And you want to guess how old they say Michael Porter Jr. is?
Like he should be what, 19 or 20? That's how old he should be.
20, I believe. Just turned 20.
Okay.
So how old do you think they say he is?
Like 24?
They say he is 0.
Wow. This is not even a person.
He's not even a person.
Not even a person. Well, for the Nuggets this year, and for fantasy purposes, he is not even a person. For all you redrafters out there. But Dynasty Leagues, Michael Porter Jr. is, I think, a very risky flyer. We talked about the rookies in our rookie preview that we did earlier this summer. Go check that out on the podcast. It is worth, I think it's worth a really good listen. And actually, Tyler has released some exclusive content on the Patreon, and that's patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. He has his entire fantasy rookie rankings for the draft class last year. It's a pretty good list, Tyler.
Thank you, Michael. Here's the thing I'll say about Porter Jr. too. If you're looking at any kind of projection sites, be that Mark or Basketball Monster, anybody you want to look at, #basketball, anybody, most of them do the translations off college stats. The problem with Michael Porter Jr. is he played 3 college games.
Yeah.
So I would be careful on any Michael Porter Jr. stats you look at. Either they just made them up, they used a 3-game sample, or they fudged in some high school numbers.
Yeah. Or they're taking a wild guess.
Right, that I wouldn't put much stock into. So Michael Porter Jr. is a really tough guy to peg, even if you say he's 100% healthy, and then obviously he just had a second back surgery. So he's a really hard guy to peg, and I think that's why you saw him fall to the Nuggets at 14.
Yeah.
And
14 when he was considered,
here's what all the scouting reports say. Good scorer, kind of a ball hog,
kind of a dick.
Can shoot. Much about good rebounder, good assists, good defensive stats, good defensive player. It's always just can score, gonna take a lot of shots.
Sounded like a taller Melo to me.
Yeah, so, and if there was a player in this draft class, like if I had to say, this guy is the most likely to score 20 points a game, Michael Porter Jr. would have ranked relatively high on that list. Right? Like, he's a good scorer, but I don't think there's going to be a lot else coming with those numbers as far as, like, a ceiling projection. And obviously the floor projection is the back injury keeps him from ever playing again.
Yeah. Stay away. Completely stay away. I'm not interested in them all in a dynasty league. Obviously, redraft leagues, you don't have to worry about that. Denver Nuggets did draft Michael Porter Jr. Go ahead, Tyler.
In a startup dynasty, if he goes for $1, like if everyone's taking that strategy, I'll take him for $1. If he could get healthy and literally average 20 points a game on a really cheap contract, that could be something you want.
Sure. Yeah, if he ever
You know,
plays a basketball
like,
game. I
he's
mean, there's
literally
always a price. There's always a draft pick if you're in a super, super deep league. Yeah, sure.
he's literally in the absolute flyer category though now, as opposed to if he's healthy, he could have easily been a top 5 player in this class, but he's just not.
No. I don't even know if he could have been a top 5 player. I think this draft class is loaded, but check out our rookie rankings for more of the talk about this draft class, or check out Tyler's rankings on patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. But let's talk about who else. Go ahead.
We did that pod where we talked a lot about Porter Jr. So the rookie rankings pod, which was a few episodes back, new player there. If you haven't listened to it, that's definitely worth your time.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the rest of this Denver Nuggets team. They also drafted Jared Vanderbilt and the Thomas Welsh at number 58.
Vanderbilt is a good rebounder for a small forward.
Yeah, he could be the next Kenneth Faried, who left the team over to the Nets, who kind of gets more interesting to me over on the Nets, but we'll talk about that in the Brooklyn Nets podcast. Wilson Chandler also has left the team. Daryl Arthur traded to the Nets as well. Isaiah Whitehead was waived, but nobody cares about that. And late in the free agency, Isaiah Thomas signed as a free agent. Also kind of interesting on this team as well. Tyler, man, what is the most interesting thing going on this Denver Nuggets team for next fantasy season?
So according to Mark Roberts, it's Isaiah Thomas.
Really? That's what Mark said? Does Mark's projections over at #basketball have ranked pretty high?
Thomas.
You dropped out.
Yeah, I see that. I wasn't sure if it was me or you that time though, but we're good now.
Okay. Mark ranked Isaiah Thomas that high?
Yeah, Mark ranked Isaiah Thomas way up there. Like way up there.
Really? In how many minutes per game?
Hold on one second.
You good?
Hold on one second. Let me make sure this thing's not actually updating. It just said it just started that damn update again, and I had to freaking cancel it.
Like you can't postpone it for like 12 hours?
Dude, it doesn't. It's not even like asking me if I want to update. It just starts. It just goes.
Jeez.
Just like, you will now update Chrome, and I'm like, no, I don't want to. All right, I'm good now.
Google doesn't mess around, man.
Google's a freaking rapist, man. Apparently,
they own everything. All right, cool. So Isaiah Thomas, Mark's got him ranked pretty good.
So Mark has him ranked as a top 50 player. Can you believe that?
Top 50 player? No, come on, that's ridiculous.
No, I was kidding. But Mark has him ranked 95th.
Top 100 player. That's to me ridiculous too.
And 24 minutes a game, he ranks 95th in Mark's rankings.
Well, I know Isaiah Thomas can score, but like I don't understand if that's just a blip in the system because he's taking in the production that he did in Boston into account. But all things considered, from last year, I just don't see that happening.
Well, here's what makes him a top 100 player, right? And so we'll go number by number. We'll see what you think. 2 3-pointers a game.
Yeah, okay.
right? Like Isaiah Thomas has been known to fire some 3-pointers, man. Like him hitting 2 a game in 24 minutes doesn't seem that unreasonable.
Sure.
1.9 rebounds.
Okay. Yeah, whatever.
4 assists.
Maybe a little high. Maybe a little. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Like 0.7 steals.
Okay. Maybe a little high.
1/10 of a block, which is nothing
It's
basically.
normal. Yeah.
16.9 points. That's probably the one you're going to quibble with a little bit,
Yeah,
right?
that feels a little high for 24 minutes again.
But as a sixth man kind of chucker, it wouldn't really be that uncommon to see someone get 15, 16 points a game. So how many did Will Barton average last year?
Yeah, I was going to say, so you're trying to tell me that Isaiah Thomas is going to be taking the Will Barton role on this team? Because, I'm pretty sure Will Barton is still on the team.
Well, who's going to start at the 3?
I'm assuming Will Barton.
Yeah, right? So if Will Barton moves into the starting lineup and is playing more with that unit, Isaiah Thomas is going to get some minutes where he's surrounded by Mason Plumlee and Trey Lyles and, I don't know, Malik Beasley or Monte Morris or, whoever else in the backcourt, right? Like, that doesn't sound like a very good scoring lineup to me.
No, I guess he is going to be chucking. If defenses kind of hone in on him like they, and he's also lost quite a step. And shot under 40% last year. Like,
and the hip's a big question mark, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is that hip? I don't know, man. Maybe it's.
Well, let me maybe put it to you in another way.
There's a reason he got $2 million, though. Let's put it that way. There's a start right there. He only got $2 million for a reason.
That's a great point. Let me ask you another question though. What round are you drafting him in, Tyler?
So this is a difficult one for me because I think a lot. Well, here's why. Let me explain. I think we saw last year he was not healthy at all, right? Like, can we agree on that? Like the games we saw,
he was not healthy.
He did not look anywhere near healthy. So you have to factor that in, right? And he had another hip surgery this offseason, if I'm not mistaken.
Great. Good news.
Right? So maybe that fixed it, but maybe not. He's a guy with a really high ceiling if he could get back to healthy, right? We've seen it. He can be really awesome. He's even had seasons not in that Boston year where he was really good, right?
Yeah, coming off the bench with Pizza Man over with the Kings.
Yeah. And so there's that high ceiling, but then there's also the floor of maybe he's never really healthy and he plays like 30, 35 games and he has to have another hip surgery. And, so for me, maybe a last couple round flyer. Like I wouldn't hate it, but it's also probably not something I'm doing either. Like there's probably somebody I like better.
Yeah, I feel like the answer is that in a standard league, I'm not drafting him. I'm staying away from him. There's too much. I'll pick him up off the waiver if he's hot in the first week or two, but I'm not wasting a pick on him later on. I think there's too many guys with too big of upside.
I don't think you're going to get that chance in this sense. I think someone will recognize that name, especially late on in a draft, and be like, "Oh, that's mine." And then if he is playing well, you're never going to get that, right? But just looking at Mark's rankings, right? Like he ranks 95th. Just guys that I'm looking at that I'd rather have. I'd rather have Thaddeus Young. I'd rather have Trae Young. I'd rather have Evan Fournier, probably. I'd rather have Elfrid Payton.
It's good to hear that your love affair with Thaddeus Young still is ongoing.
Elite steals don't come easy at that point in the draft.
You're damn right they don't, and that's why Thaddeus Young always underrated. Isaiah Thomas. I wouldn't say he's the most interesting thing on in this squad.
I just think that Mark ranking him in the top 100.
That is surprising.
Interesting.
It is interesting and surprising. I disagree, and I don't think that will happen. So I'm not drafting him, and maybe I'll stream him in the future. Who knows? It will be smart to keep an eye on Isaiah Thomas. I'm more interested, not in Will Barton. We'll get to Steam and Willie Barton here in a while. He got paid. He's going to do Will Barton things this year. I think Mark Roberts not too excited about Will Barton, but you guys are all haters, per usual. I'm more interested in the return of Paul Millsap for a couple reasons. One, as we've said in probably a handful of podcasts now in these team previews, guys who don't play or are injured the year before often overlooked and forgotten. You know, you're probably going to get a little bit of a discount on Gordon Hayward.
I think he'll be a little worse this season.
Say that again? You're dropped.
Excuse me, I didn't say anything.
There you go. That's the first thing I've heard you say. Are you still there?
Can you hear me now?
You're still a little scratch. I can hear you, but it's going in and out.
Whoa, that was creepy. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better. You good? Hello?
How about now?
Should we just call this one?
So mine, I couldn't hear you for like. Oh.
Yeah, you've completely dropped out at this point. And I think you're going to get a discount on Paul Millsap going into this draft as well. But also, like, so you got the return of Paul Millsap, which could give you a little bit of value. But also, you have the effect that Millsap has to the starting lineup and to Nikola Jokic, who did start out the season when Paul Millsap was playing, performing, I guess, not as good as he did during the last stretch of the season when he was pretty much a top 10 player and really came into his own. So is that Millsap effect going to affect Jokic at all? So I think Millsap's more interesting, certainly way more interesting than Isaiah Thomas to standard league players.